Hello and welcome to another episode of Women Are the Medicine, the show offering you a healthy dose of wisdom from women who have something that the world needs to hear. I'm your host, Naz, and I'm genuinely in a little bit of awe of today's guest. Donna Lancaster is a transformative coach, group facilitator, author, and all-round bloody legend with over 32 years of experience. Her journey began as a child protection social worker, eventually leading her to become a Hoffman teacher and then head of teaching at the Hoffman Institute UK. Donna co-founded the famous The Bridge Retreat and has authored 2 impactful books, The Bridge and Wise Words for Women. She's been featured in more publications than we have time to read out, but just let me tell you, her wealth of knowledge on healing, relationships, and living authentically is a gold mine, and I cannot wait to share her with you, although you probably already know who she is. Donna, welcome, and thank you for saying yes to coming on the show.
Oh, thank you, Naz. I've never been called a legend before, so that's new. That's when you know
absolutely are.
That's when you know you're an elder.
Fair enough.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You are one of my favourite people to listen to read, and to watch in action. You know, I'm very lucky. I've had the pleasure of seeing you live, working your magic, although it doesn't look like work. Everything about you, your message, your energy, the words you use, just the way you hold yourself feels like medicine. And I've noticed that everyone, but especially women, really, really resonate. So what is it that you think that people are drawn to? What is the medicine that people come to you for, Donna?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the medicine is, I think what they see and feel in me and sense in me is, of course, what they have in themselves. And as I always say, Naz, that I don't hold anything that any other woman doesn't hold. I've just remembered it. And sometimes other people are at a different stage in their life where they haven't remembered it. And so they haven't remembered that they are the medicine, that they have all this access to this wisdom. And what it takes is to clear the debris that covers over your own heart and soul in order to be able to really transmit that. And I think that's what people are drawn to, is they sense that I carry something that they too carry. And it just resonates vibrationally. And I also talk from the heart, and that includes bumbling and stumbling and imperfections. As I always say, perfection is a patriarchal trick. And so I'm modeling something to them around, you can be professional and wise and full of wisdom and knowledge, and also full of love and imperfect, and sort of stumble on your words or forget what you're saying. And I that's, I think, what people, it's like a collective sigh of relief from women to go, oh, thank goodness, I can be flawed and wise.
I've seen that in the real flesh in life. I'm doing it now. I've seen you talking about something and then forgetting halfway through and going, oh my God, what was I talking about? I'm having a brain fart. I'm having a menopausal moment. And literally the audience has this collective sigh. It's like, oh my God, did she say that? Did she admit it? What is it in us as women that prevents us from giving us the permission to just make mistakes? Where is this coming from, do you think?
The patriarchy. So it's this belief as women that unless we are perfect, we have no right to exist, basically. So we are bombarded from probably in utero with messages, from before we're born almost. This kind of, it's received in our mother's milk through we're birthed into a patriarchal system, and we almost receive it into our mother through our mother's milk because she was birthed into a patriarchal system. And so it's this real sense that, all of us have been bombarded with what's wrong with us, why we need to do better, look better, be intelligent but not too intelligent, be beautiful but not too beautiful, don't intimidate us. All of these layer upon layer of messages, which I call poisoned arrows, that ultimately lead women when they're asleep, which all that poison does lead us to become very sleepy in society. And then we focus on all our inadequacies. And then the wakening up, awakening piece is really healing the wounds from those poisoned arrows that were shot into us by our mothers and our mothers' mothers and our fathers, etc. And really pulling them out, questioning, is this my belief? Is this even true? And then healing the wound it leaves behind, and then daring to live from an authentic place, which is, as being human, we are flawed, and it is what makes us so beautiful. So I think it is part of this whole system of women being seen collectively as less than.
Oh my goodness. Everything you said just resonates. I know that feeling of thinking I'm progressive and I don't, I value what's inside over the outside. And yet as you start the aging process as a woman, then you start to go, oh, I'm unhappy with my face. I'm unhappy with my bum, and my boobs are dropping. And then you start to, that's what you're talking about, right? That patriarchal system is it's in our blood almost. And it's so insidious that we think we're being progressive and feminist and authentic, but actually we're within the system. So how do we wake up? I know you had this brilliant post on Instagram the other day where you said, I might not be liked for this, but I'm just going to admit I've got a dirty secret, that I actually really like myself. Like, didn't happen overnight, but dare I say it, maybe even love yourself. How do we start that process of awakening?
I think it's something that when you're in a kind of what I call the phase one of life, when it's very egoic led, it's you're not ready to face it. So it's almost like the necessary part of you that wrestles and struggles with all of kind of the egoic phase of life, all that kind of maybe the shoes or the boobs or the white teeth or the bags or whatever it was, or whatever it is, that they'll make me feel enough. And so that when you're in phase one, I don't think you are ready to awaken. I certainly wasn't. Someone could have come along. I always say that when you're in a deeper phase, an awakening phase, and you talk to somebody who's in a kind of splashing around in the shallows with the shoes, and there's nothing wrong with shoes, I love shoes, but just focusing on my tits, are they high enough? My teeth, are they white enough? When we're focusing on needing to be perfect, is when someone in phase two comes along and says, hey, come below the water. There's something deeper here to be explored. It's like all they see are bubbles coming out of your mouth. They can't hear you, Naz, because you're speaking the language of phase two to somebody who's in the phase one of life. And phase one, there's nothing wrong with it. It's necessary. So I think that's an important point, is that when you are in phase one, and we've all been there, it's okay to know that, that you are focusing on those elements of building yourself and your sense of identity, strengthening your ego, basically. And then when you're ready, because the universe loves you so much, it will pull the rug out from under you, and you start to realize that all the things you thought would fill you up outside in are not important at all. And then you start to shed them. And it's like, oh, I don't want so many shoes. I don't want this. I don't want, you start to get rid of the things that you thought would make you feel better, and they don't work. And then you start to strengthen and build your identity from the inside out. And so I think what really happens to most of us is a life event happens that causes us to really start to transition from phase one to a deeper phase of life, which is more, if you like, soul-led living. And as I always say, Naz, is that pain is the greatest spiritual teacher you will ever meet. And I have experienced a lot of emotional pain and some physical pain in my life, having been in violent, abusive relationships, and the first one being with my father. And so pain was my spiritual teacher, and it's pain that has led me to have such a light heart. But you have to do the grief work, which is also soul work, to move from phase one to phase two.
Yeah, no wonder some women want to splash around in the shallows, because perhaps the idea of facing anything that's painful, they're like, fuck that, I'm not going there. I'm not going there.
Absolutely.
But as you've said, the universe has a way of either nudging you or shoving you over the cliff.
Yes.
Would you share some of your life events that helped you to awaken, that put you on this path into phase 2?
Yeah, I mean, oh gosh, take your pick. But I mean, I wrote about this in the bridge, and there was a real moment in my life where the universe really did pull the rug from under me, where I had, for the first time in my life at around 30, which is quite an age for most people to go through that transition, as I had a panic attack, which I thought was a heart attack. And I'd never, as somebody who identified with the warrior woman persona and archetype, I'd never seen myself as someone that would be fear-based. I learned a long, long time ago not to show fear. So I was so shocked. I was working as a social worker at the time, and it just brought me literally to my knees. And it was like the warrior armor of how I had survived my childhood and my young adult life just kind of collapsed. It was so exhausted from fighting and struggling and pushing, and that kind of, all of that fell away, and I literally was brought to my knees by life. And I ended up, I had, I think, 6 months off work, and it really was like a death. And in that death was me crawling through this portal that opened up to move from phase 1 to phase 2. So I kind of, and I didn't do it alone. Very few people should give birth alone. And I was birthing myself, this next version of myself and my life. But I went into therapy. I had a lot of support with different programs and different kind of body trauma support and therapists, etc., and healers over this period of time to allow me to transition into this next phase of my life. And it was extremely painful. However, Naz, not as painful as living the half a life that I had lived before the universe brought me to my knees. That was much more painful, existing, not living, and living a kind of narrow version of what was possible for me. Pretending to be strong, pretending to be fearless, pretending to be this warrior, when really I was just a terrified little girl, still terrified that my dad was going to come in, and hurt me. So all of that needed to be dealt with. And in doing that, what felt like a never-ending kind of low-level sort of sadness, like I used to call it, like terminal sadness. It felt like I was slowly dying from sadness. And what happened with that big kind of wake up was, yes, it was painful and it took some months to recover from, but then I really came into living, into the land of living, Naz. And that was just magical to finally see with all 3 eyes wide open. It was like, wow. And unnecessary grief came up about what I'd missed out on through existing for 30 years, rather than living. So there was also a grief that came as a result of grieving, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Recognizing that all of those years that you've spent suffering or numbing, pretending to be something that you're not, were unnecessary. And yet they almost feel like you said, that the pain of that is part of the growth. There's no right or wrong in this life. There's a time for you to make a decision. I'm curious, with your book, The Bridge, you take people through a process that goes from heartbreak to living authentically. Can we just touch on some of those gateways that people pass through as they move along the bridge? What would be helpful for people to know is the journey?
Yeah, I mean, when they're ready, and it is about when you're ready, or when the universe says you're ready. Like me in the ladies' loo, when I was brought to my knees, it was like, yeah, there wasn't a lot of choice about it. But it's really about daring to turn towards the places inside you that hurt, to not run away from them, to not numb them, to not avoid them or deny their importance, is to dare to turn towards them. And that's the first start, really, is when we start to say, I've worked for 34 years actually with people, and it's like when people say, oh yeah, but I had a great childhood. And I'm always very curious when people say that almost before they came in the door. And you can have had a great childhood and still have been significantly wounded by your parents or the people that raised you, or your family, or your school, or your church, or your community, So it's a both and situation for some people. So the first step is really to be willing to turn towards the places inside that hurt and ache, and then to grieve what happened to you, to fully grieve, to really feel the sadness, anger, and fear about what you did get and what you didn't get, because that's the other thing, Naz, is so often for people, myself included, is I had to grieve for the way my parents treated me and didn't protect me. And I also had to grieve for the fact that I never had really loving parents, never received nurture in the way that, so many other people in my orbit appeared to. It was like going, when I went to a friend's house and they had kind of food on the table at a mealtime, it was like landing in another planet. Like, oh, people give you food here, and they cook for you. It really was that, that's sort of stark, the difference. So anyway, to come back, it's that thing of really being honest and realistic, and turning towards the places inside you that hurt, not skimming over them. And then really what I call finishing your business, which is to go back, not literally go back, but to spend time really exploring your feelings and expressing your feelings, always through the body, not just speaking them out, not just writing them, not just talking and sitting in a chair, somatically releasing the grief held in your body, because that's where grief and trauma live, in the body, not just in the mind.
And why is that so important? Just walk us through that. I know you said it lives there, but what does that mean for people who don't yet get that it's stored and how it's released, and like to think their way through things or journal their way through things?
Good luck with that.
Gifts? Yeah, I know. What gifts await us when we work with the body, and how do you like to work? Explain to people who don't know what it means to work somatically.
Sure. Well, first of all, awareness is the first stage of really healing. It's like the very first step is to be aware that you have some bits that maybe are tender to touch, as in your history, and then turn towards them. And then you can read all the books you like, you can listen to all the podcasts you like, you can understand your history. My dad was like that, my mum was like that, so I'm like this. That's great. But if that only lands from the neck up, see how that positively impacts your life. That's not healing, that's awareness. Yeah, which is the first step towards healing. So I think it's so many people say, oh yeah, I've done all the analysis, and it's like, great awareness. So let's get to work. Let's drop it from the neck down. When I worked in California, I used to work in California a lot, and a lot of people, they had all the language, all the lingo, everything was here. Oh yes, I know this, I know that. And I was like, okay, how do we get it from here to really drop, especially into the heart? So the types of somatic, but there's so much available now. I wish I had some of the access that people have now to free resources that the internet has gifted us, one of the gifts of the internet. But it is things like working with trauma release exercises, working with somatic experiencing. You can release through the body through safe expression of anger. I would always do that with somebody rather than by yourself, especially if you have trauma. It's just finding what works for you. Breath work, there's so many different ways that can bring that awareness, drop it down into the body, and so it lands in the body and then is released through the body. And you can see people's history, through how they hold their body, how they move their body, and how they treat their body. So there's so much in kind of non-verbal when I meet people to work with. It's, for me, it's what's in the eyes. You can see what's in the eyes. And then I'm always interested in what they don't say rather than what they do, and also what their body says.
Yes, I love that. And I think I personally really enjoy somatic work because you don't have to think so much. The body does a lot of the work for you. And certainly in psychedelic practices, often there you can have a somatic experience. And it's like, thank goodness I'm not having to think my way through this. The body is just releasing, and it does all sorts of strange things. You know, I've had hours of shaking and very peculiar sensations, but you start to develop a new relationship, I think, with the body
Yes,
when you work in this way.
totally, totally. And the body is just so wise, you know, the body doesn't lie. It literally does not lie. And so it's like, why would we turn away from this whole wealth of wisdom and truth that is just trying to help us heal? You know, it's like it's been waiting for most of us, because most of us, especially if you experience trauma as I did in childhood, which is many people, whether they would call it that or not, is many of us then leave our body. We learn to disassociate from our body, and our journey is back to inhabit the body, to really live in this beautiful miracle of a body. So it takes work, but it's finding something that works for you and to do it safely in a way that, and often that involves some kind of guidance or support. And then just like you say, the body takes over, like with psychedelics, and then it's like it does so much of the healing without having to say the whole story that you maybe have told a zillion times before. You know, it's like it's not a fast track, but it's a definite, necessary, essential part of the process.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really curious. I know you've had an experience with psychedelics. How was that for you?
I mean, I've had more than one, but I've had several experiences of psychedelics, and there have been all of them have been profound. All of them have been transformational, and some of them have been more enjoyable than others. But I'm, again, with these things, the thing that I have now is I fundamentally trust in life, and I've reached a stage in my human experience where I really trust life. I trust where it points me. I trust, and the body is part of that. I trust how life is showing me signs all the time of where I need to go and what I need to pay attention to and what's my next direction and all of these things. And I got led to psychedelics in the same way. And it wasn't something that I had intended. And then suddenly I found myself, oh, I'm going that way. You know, so for me, they have been absolutely fundamental and transformational, and not always pleasant, just as the healing journey isn't.
No, and I agree. They're not always pleasant, but they can be. I'm curious, what did they teach you?
Oh gosh, how long you got? They taught me that to not fear death, and that we don't really die. They taught me that they didn't even teach me. They reminded me of what I already knew. So they showed me what I already knew, which is that we are part of this oneness, that we are consciousness. They showed me that I had two experiences of dying, and one was blissful and one wasn't so blissful, and one of them was really about experiencing myself going back to the earth, and I felt myself become earth. And it was just the most delicious, most ecstatic experience to just feel myself decomposing. And that may or may not make sense to people, but I loved it. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going back to the earth, baby. And I'm
Getting back into bed.
Yeah, it was. It was like, wow. And just really feeling myself return to where I came from, you know, this sense of being at one with nature and also with the universe. It was blissful. It also taught me about making peace with the kind of ceasing to exist as a human, that we call death, and it gave me a real clarity around my control issues, which I knew most people that are traumatized in childhood have control issues, and it gave me real clarity and juice around that, and about really enhancing my ability to trust in life, and particularly in love. And what I really got a sense of from each experience was that I'm here which brings us full circle to what you described about me at the beginning, is that I'm really here to transmit love with the capital L, as we all are, but support other people to find their way back to that bigger love, that greater love. So that's what I gained of many, many other lessons.
Amazing. I think I always say that psychedelics are a tool, and they take us somewhere. They can take us somewhere really deep within ourselves or out into the cosmos. I'm curious though, what was the medicine that you've worked with?
Ayahuasca and mushroom psilocybin. And also I've done MDMA therapy as well.
Yeah, that's next level MDMA therapy. It's quite different from the psychedelic experiences. And again, working on that somatic level with the body, right? So getting in there without having to have any stories.
Do you know what, Naz? That with ayahuasca in particular, I can remember the plant working on my healing on a physical level from the inside. My jaw clicked open, my heart, my back, everything in my body I became looser, and it was like I started to move differently. People noticed afterwards I moved and held my body differently, and it was one of the worst nights of my life.
Yeah, my ayahuasca was similar as well. I've had 2 so far, but one of them was holy moly. I would not want to do that again. But that in itself was a great lesson for me. I think everything you were saying, control issues. I also had a fear of death. I'm sure I still have a fear of death. If I'm coming up to that crunch point, I don't think I'm going to be quite ready to let go. But the medicine, the ayahuasca was, like you said, she was in me. I could feel her. I could feel her almost like someone put a hand on my back and was moving me and moving my body and working her way through me. It was quite peculiar, I have to say, but incredible. It's very hard to describe, isn't it?
Yeah. I was just going to say, it's also the closest. I think someone described it as kind of meeting God on the inside or something. And I'm not religious, but it is that profound an experience. And I know ayahuasca is also called the grandmother vine, I believe. And it felt like the voices I heard were like an elder, a female elder, telling me this, telling me that. And I also felt like this deep connection to the divine like I've never felt in my life, and that's never gone away actually. And that was some years ago that I did ayahuasca. Would I do ayahuasca again, or psilocybin, or
any of the psychedelics? Like, are you called? What would be your intention, do you think, for working with medicine? Because you have reached, a lot of people want to work with psychedelics to help heal trauma, and it is incredible for that. But I think there's a side to psychedelics that people don't really get, that it can help you be more courageous, more authentic. It helps with creativity. Do you have an inkling of what you might, if you were to work with it again, what the reasoning would be, what the intention would be?
Sure. I mean, I feel like my time with psychedelics, I haven't done a lot. I've had a few experiences, and that was sort of over a significant period of time. So I'm definitely not one of these people, like a lot of people, that see it as some kind of, it's using it in a way that I don't think is necessarily healthy. I see, I hear about this. Whereas for me, they were all deep. It was like going to church, and they were deeply spiritual experiences. And so I don't see myself rushing back anytime soon to grab onto that ayahuasca vomit bucket. But I do feel like I would do that medicine again when I need to. So, for example, if I got a health diagnosis, that meant that maybe my life was going to be shorter than I anticipated, I would go back to the plant for guidance.
Yeah, really, really powerful reasons. Thank you for sharing that with me. I was really curious, and I had an inkling that you might have worked with psychedelics.
Yes.
So yeah, delighted to know that.
Yeah.
Let's just come back to the good old patriarchy, that insidious fucking system that we're not built with a small p, that we're not meant to, that we don't fit in. I think as women, I don't even think as men they fit in, but certainly as women. But it's inside us. You talked about these poison arrows. What do you mean by that? How are we as women holding ourselves back in the patriarchy?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's like you don't know you're asleep until you wake up. And so I think with poisoned arrows, they were shot into us by our families and our communities who had those arrows, the same versions or similar versions of those arrows shot into them, which is part of this system of the diminishment of women's powers, you know, and their understanding of how powerful they are. And so all of these arrows are shot into us before we have cognition, before we are even aware that they're arrows and they're poisoned, you know, these metaphorical arrows. So I think it is inevitable that women will be sleepy for, you know, long periods of their life. And again, part of my mission is to help women awaken quicker because there is no time. You know, people think they've got all this time, and I believe that we are really in a state of crisis, and women, if the world is to be saved, it is going to be saved by the feminine. And so I really believe that women need to wake up so much quicker. And part of the issue, which comes back to psychedelics and also other ways of kind of rituals and guides and elders and ways that help us transition quicker, because I think so many people get stuck in the poisoned arrow, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I hate myself phase of life. They get stuck there for longer because they don't have the necessary rituals, ceremonies, and guides and elders to lead them and support them through the portal into the next phase. So I think that's why women are asleep for, you know, extended periods of time. But there is no time. I really believe it's urgent. We need to wake up, and that's where psychedelics come in. And I think that's why such an emergence of psychedelics in the healing world is you haven't got time to be in therapy for 20 years. Sorry, with all respect. There's no time. So we need to really en masse wake up. And I think that's how much, you know, Mother Nature loves us and sees that we need to wake up because we're destroying her. So I'm not sure if that answered your question. I went on a little bit of a rant, but
no, it's so important. I loved your vision of you know, the world or humanity being saved by the feminine. I'm seeing a lot of shadow feminine and wounded feminine, especially. Obviously, we use social media to promote our businesses. We're on there with everything going on in the world. Like you say, there's a crisis, and yet people don't seem to want to wake up. They don't want to disrupt their shiny, perfect lives because it's not convenient right now. So how do we encourage women to have the courage to wake up? Is that where the role of the elder comes in? Talk me through what you think can help shake someone awake. Because you know, you said when they're ready, but hopefully people are. I think some people are ready and just not prepared to take the leap, perhaps.
Perhaps. I mean, I do think that, you know, there is a really key role of elders, and we are sadly lacking in elders in our society in the West, you know. So it's like, you know, an elder is somebody who has grown both older and wiser, and they have transformed their wounds into wisdom, and they are ready to share that wisdom, that hard-won wisdom, with those following in their footsteps, i.e. the next generations, even if that's just, you know, a couple of years behind them or whatever. And so there's just, because we're bombarded with the shallows, we're bombarded, you know, and we can go on about scrolling and all, we all know what they are, the ways that keep us soporific, the ways that the society we live in keeps us consuming, because feeling good enough also means that you don't buy stuff or snort stuff or drink stuff because you wake up. So it's that thing of not enough elders, society invested in us staying asleep, and people not kind of moving into that phase, because we have, as a collective in society, I believe, because so many people haven't done that healing work that's necessary to grow up emotionally, is that if we're really being generous as a collective, we're probably arrested at around 15, and I'm being generous here. You know,
Wow.
for many people, it's like 5 or 6. They look like adults, but inside they're acting and behaving and making choices in life like children without boundaries, because you're like an adult. So you have money, not everybody, but you have money and choices and power that you didn't have when you were 5, but inside you're 5. So you're like, yeah, I have that. I have that. And it's like, it's just more and more and more. It's the ego. The ego is insatiable. And so, it's that process that's just keeping everybody asleep. And the world is really, really happy to collude with that.
Oh my goodness, that's ringing so true. And I have a friend who's a psychotherapist, and she says, look, everyone is a toddler. They're letting their toddlers make the decisions. The world leaders at the moment, they're toddlers in a suit, making decisions, going to war, like thinking it's a game, and it's not.
No, and not even toddlers that, my youngest grandson is a toddler, and he is in his heart completely. But these are wounded toddlers, and that's a dangerous, dangerous place to find ourselves, being led by world leaders that are traumatized and wounded and have so disconnected from their hearts that they live from the neck up because their heart is completely frozen love. They've been hurt, whatever's happened to them. And then people that, when their hearts completely freeze over, they're capable of the most heinous crimes. And so these are not toddlers of innocence. These are toddlers with dangerous wounds that they are capable of causing, as we only have to look at war.
Absolutely. And I think you write about this, about not demonizing them, because then we lose our humanity when we look at these toddlers who are running around doing these heinous things. And actually, the minute we dehumanize them, demonize them, we take away from our own humanity. So how do we reconcile? How do we manage, especially if you are awakened and your heart is open and you're feeling the weight of everything at the moment? Perhaps you're grieving the dream that you once had for this world and this planet and humanity, and right now we're just seeing it's just gone up in flames. What are some tools that can help people, or some insights and perspectives that can help people to cope and manage with the state of the world right now?
I mean, the first thing is to recognize that you are, in working on yourself, it is not self-obsession. It is the least narcissistic thing, is to turn towards those places that hurt, because as one woman heals, we all heal. And so that's really the first thing, is to recognize that you are an inner activist by doing the work, by healing your heart, defrosting the pockets of your own frozen heart, to be the love that you are, and then transmit that, which is a high vibration, Naz. And then this is why, what happens when people say, I hate them, bastards, Putin, you're just lowering your vibration to meet that low vibration. And you do that en masse, here we are. And so we have to try something new. And that is about working on yourself, recognizing that it's actually not about you. It's in service to the world. People think, it's a bit self-indulgent, nasal gazing. No, you work on yourself. You're an activist. That's the first point of activism, is you start from within. You heal and clear the debris from your heart and your soul, and then you emanate and transmit the love that you are in your remembering. And then we stand against, from an energized, open-hearted and boundaried place, we stand against for what the low vibrational people represent, and we stand and we fight and we march and we go out in the world, and we are true activists, but from a place of love and healing, not from a hate begets hate. Good luck, look where we are. So it's almost like strategic to me. It's like becoming and remembering the love that you are is the greatest strategic plan you will ever instigate in the healing of this planet, is to love people, stand against what they represent and what they do and say, and love them, even though that is in action right there. That is world change.
That I'm getting goosebumps from you saying that, to stand there, to stand against what they represent, to stand against their behavior, but to be there with compassion and see the wounded child, the person that never knew love, the person that's having to, that's not grown up, that is frozen, and melt there melt them with compassion and understanding. And that's a hard place to be, especially now, like if there's definite division right now. If you're not on this side and you're not on that side, you know, where are you? But actually, I think this is the strongest stance to be in. It's hard.
Of course.
Where do you get your support from? How do you stay so strong? Because you said you're not religious, but you've had spiritual experiences. Where does that faith come from?
Well, I mean, my faith comes from a deep, deep connection to the divine, and psychedelics were part of that journey. And I trust in life completely. And faith, faith sometimes means that you believe against all odds. And I trust in love as part of life, because I believe underpinning everything that exists is love as an energy, as a higher consciousness, and everything else is just what's done in the name of frozen love. And so for me, I get my resource from love itself, and that may sound woo-woo, and I don't mind, but I get my resource through my own elders. I get my resource through prayer, non-religious prayer, through meditation, and through remembering moment by moment, choice by choice, that I am love, and it was love that will save us if we are to be saved.
I love that. What does your day look like? How do your days look different? Do you go with the flow? Do you have a set practice? You talked about non-religious prayers there. I'm really curious as to what are some of these tools or practices that rituals even that shape your day.
Yeah, I mean, I have what's kind of like a sacred or holy hour in the morning, which is I carve this time out where I don't turn on a gadget. I'm not interested in any, my day beginning in the sense of, all the kind of busyness, where my mind is relatively empty from the nourishment of my sleep and my dreams. And then I will read some spiritual text, or the first thing I do in my day is I pray. So as soon as I open my eyes, I pray every day, non-negotiable, wherever I am. As soon as I open my eyes, I put my hand on my heart and I pray. And my prayers are usually around thanks and asking for whatever the otherness of life to help me to be the best version of myself and to be led by love and not fear or ego. And so that starts me and kickstarts me off for the day. Then I do, like I said, I'll do some writing, I'll do some reading, I have coffee. I'm not somebody that's sitting on a cushion, and I that works for some people, it doesn't for me. I'm a very grounded, I do believe I was a tree in a former life, and I feel very grounded and connected to the earth. So I'll go out for a walk, I'll be in amongst the trees, but I really start my day like that as much as I can, because it enables me to remember more easily that I am love. And so easy to forget, isn't it? And then I get an email and it's like, oh, you bastard, the ego gets triggered and I'm like, fuck you, and then it's like, Donna, get back on your mat and remember you are the love. And it comes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. There's about living authentically and imperfectly. But I can laugh at my ego, and I don't take my ego too seriously. I just have those practices, and I pray throughout the day. Where I used to ruminate, I pray. I just pray. I send wishes of love. I move through London Underground, sending love to people, and it's something that kind of comes back on me, and I feel my heart just expand, and then it just gets easier and easier, because when you've got out of your own way and you've defrosted your heart, then love, the bigger love, divine love, can flow into you and through you. So it's not like, we can get, when we're doing love with a small L, it's like, oh, I love my partner and I love my dog and I love my child and fuck everyone else. And you don't have to ration love when you clear the debris from your soul, because love will flow to you and through you, and then you share that shit. Like I always say, spread it like confetti. You can pass that around because there's such an abundance of it. It's never ending.
Yes, I love that. I love the idea of you pollinating love just by sending it out to people on the tube.
I
And
do.
we've all met those people who do this, who somehow their energy, just their smile, their way of being, the way they handle themselves just lifts you. And how much better to be one of those people in life versus the ones that are, and I admittedly used to be one of those people. My husband is the happiest man in the world in the mornings. And for years, I'd be like, why are you so fucking happy in the morning when I'm feeling like I don't want to get out of bed and you don't understand me and meh, meh, meh. And he, resolute in his bounciness, his tigginess. And now it's, thankfully I'm with him in the mornings, like happier, not always happy. I do sometimes start with a little, but that idea of having a practice that reminds you from the moment you wake up to be grateful and to have the intention of love just sounds like the sweetest, most generous gift giving to the universe, that you are going to start. I'm going to start my day in this way. I'm going to commit. I'm going to be a commitment to love because I'm going to start my day in this stance.
Totally. And I mean, let's also be clear here. It's easy for me because I haven't got a farting partner next to me. so it's much easier for me now because I'm not, because I'm, oh, you smelly bastard. I don't have that at this point in my life. And so, and I don't have children to sort of wake me. I have grandchildren that wake me up at 5 a.m. But I recognize that many people will be listening and thinking, oh, it's all right for her. And yeah, because I am at the stage of my life where I have created a life where my focus is on keeping my heart open and warm, because cold hearts turn to ice eventually, and icy hearts can do dangerous things. So it really is my activism. I just want to say that it makes it easier that there isn't some farting, smelly person next to me. Although my grandson does a great impression of that, of a partner farting and rolling over and going, ha, ha, ha.
I love it. Let's just come back to the elderhood topic. You said there's a woeful lack of elders in our communities, especially in the West. And I think I 100% agree with you. Just because you're old and you've lived through life, that doesn't make you wise necessarily. What does it look like to become an elder?
Well, first of all, it is like many things in life. It is a becoming. It's just like becoming a mother or becoming a partner. It takes work and it takes time and it's a process. So becoming an elder, I started calling myself an elder in training at 55. And I'm 57 now. And I hope that by the time I turn 60, which in a lot of African cultures is the kind of age that they see as you shifting into elderhood. So I hope by the time I turn 60 that I will be ready to consider to take off my training wheels, and on my elder bike and kind of really embrace full elderhood. But I'm not there yet. And so I really want to say that part of becoming an elder is really preparing yourself over this, for me it's 5 years, over this process of this period of time, to less and less be led by ego, to less and less be picking at wounds that you've already healed, picking at scars to reopen the wound, as so many people like to do. When you're an elder or an elder in training, it really is that moment when you move beyond the small story of me into the bigger story of we stroke oneness. And so, how people become an elder is by doing that work that we talked about, because grief work is soul work, healing the wounds of their own past so that they can come back to be the love that they are. And then it is really in their own way. Not everybody is like me going out and working with groups of people and one-to-one with people to help them remember the love that they are. But in whatever way is meaningful and true for that person and is in alignment with their soul's purpose, is they then go out into the world. And really it's where, it's the kind of grow up and show up piece. You're emotionally mature and then you're showing up in the world to love and to serve. And that ultimately is what it's all about. Eldership is about love with a capital L and true service in whichever way that is meaningful for you.
I like the idea that even though I'm 47 on Sunday, so I like the idea that there's still another level of growing up that I get to do, because I'm really enjoying being mid 40s, like late 40s. I'm really enjoying this phase of my life, Donna. I'm starting to, I started to give less fucks when I allowed my hair to go naturally grey. So just after my 40th birthday, and it really shifted something in me. But genuinely knowing who I am, definitely giving less fucks, wanting to be more outspoken, wanting to also just not partake in the materialist rat race like that. I've just become stronger and stronger in that. What else have I got to look forward to? What else is coming? Tell
Do you know
me.
what? I mean, are you perimenopausal yet or not? Or
Oh yes.
So did you read the piece I wrote called The Menoportal? Did you read that?
No, is that on your Instagram?
No, it's on Substack, but I'll send it to you because it's free. It's one of the ones that I offered for free for people to read, I think. But anyways, I'll send it to you. But it's really about what you have to look forward to. I mean, it's this part of becoming an elder, and part of getting older is recognizing life isn't black or white, and it isn't either or, it's both and. It's that capacity to hold multiple truths at the same time. And so I think the menopause on one level can be, and the perimenopause can be really challenging. And believe me, it was very, very challenging. And there's lots of death involved, energetic death, in terms of death of your old identity, death, watching your body and losing the attention of, if you're heterosexual, the male gaze and all of that kind of stuff. So there's lots of kind of grieving that needs to happen as you let go of the youthfulness of your complexion. And people, I always joke that I remember, when I was young, I used to pull up in my car at a junction, Naz, and I'd pull up. And the first man I knew was going to let me out, and there was a moment in my life when I pulled up at this junction, it was like, and no fucker even saw me. And I was like, invisible. Yeah. It makes you a great pickpocket. But the menoportal is another transition. It's another moving. And there's the kind of the challenging and the rich gifts, and people don't talk enough about the gifts, like you said, of less giving a fuck. It's like freedom, it's liberation, and of course you come with looser skin, and my tits are going down south, and it's all happening, it's all going on, and there's a grieving involved in that. And it's liberating. I love being invisible to most men. I love being able to move through and quietly transmit love, and no one even sees me or notices me. I love the freedom of being an elder in training, and I love the clarity that it brings coming out of the menopause. So I loved my 40s as well, especially when my tits were still perky and fun bags and all of that. But you've got, as those fun bags deflate, you've got so much to look forward to, you've got so many riches coming your way. It's just delicious to be at this stage in life. It really is delicious.
Oh, thank you for confirming that. I feel it. And as you talked about gifts, it's also about what gifts we can bring to the world. You talked about women, again, potentially being the saviors for humanity, the feminine, sorry, not the women, but as part of that, women leading the way in that feminine approach. And I think it was Sharon Blackie who wrote the book Haggitude, talking about, we reached that second stage and of our lives, and we become the truth tellers. Now we become the bullshit spotters. Now we become the people who can call out. But I think it has to be done with everything that you've said, this big L love, this love and compassion, versus the kind of witchy finger pointing that we see sometimes at the moment or across social. But glad to know we've got stuff to look forward to for sure.
I mean, if you are gifted life long enough, this is the other thing, is one of the biggest entitlements is our very life and our health, is that we feel entitled. We wake up in the morning, and when you feel entitled to, your body just moves. You open your eyes and you see, you get out of bed and you move around, and you know, most people, and they don't even notice it. Like, they don't even notice that they don't believe in a higher power, some people, but they are living in evidence that a higher power exists. You know, this is a miracle. And so, you know, all of these things, it's just gift upon gift. And I think, again, the elder piece is that you just, in facing death and dying, you really become alive, and it really feels so deeply and profoundly grateful for your life. So, you know, if we're lucky enough to live into our 50s and 60s and, God willing, into our 80s, then we just take every day as grieving what we are kind of saying goodbye to in this human journey, whilst embracing change and possibility and all that brings. Is yeah, that's the work.
That is the work. And it sounds, yeah, I'm up for that. I'm up for that. It beats the alternative, right? Which is to continue being in the matrix, to be blind, to stay asleep, to try and Botox, and nothing wrong with like trying to look beautiful. And you know, plenty of my friends, I hope you're saying this, you know, have little adjustments. But actually to not have to do that, to not try and be the maiden. It's not even that people are like this abhorring the idea of being the crone or the elder, and actually looking forward to it and going, yes, I'm ready. It's important. I think it's a definite paradigm shift for many that is not easy to do alone, right? So in community.
Yeah, you've got to find your community of wise elders or trainee elders or menopausal, perimenopause, whatever label, but this kind of deepening phase 2, you're really deepening into phase 2 of life. And you need to find your crew. You find the people to which you belong, and you hang out with them, and you help and support and guide each other. And it's just beautiful. And this is what women are so good at. They're so good at sister circles. They're so good at supporting each other. And unfortunately, when they're in the matrix, when they're in the kind of phase 1 and they're in a trance, they compete with each other, they judge each other, they compare themselves to each other. And then when you move into that deepening phase, you really stop doing that. You stop judging yourself, you stop hating yourself, you recognize you're a miracle, and you see miracles wherever you go, you know. And it's just it just brings such a different dimension to life. And I have to be clear as well here, Naz, is that I was what I call a misery junkie, with all respect. For 20 years, I was a bit like you in the mornings. I was like, fucking shit happens, you know, because I was carrying so much trauma and so much pain. And I spent 20 years of my life like that. And people would find it really hard to believe, and including me now. But it's because my heart is light. And I also believe passionately that we do not diminish our light because there's so much darkness in the world. We have to shine our light. We have to shine and emanate our light and love even more brightly because there is so much darkness in the world. You're not helping anyone by sitting around going, the world's doomed. Oh, we're all fucked. It's like, of course, we all have moments of despair and despondency like that. But if you live in that place, what you don't realize is you're contributing to the very low vibrational field that created it in the first place.
Oh, thank God you said that. That was me yesterday, actually, after watching some of the news. I was like, we're fucked. I'm just going to give up. But like you say, you don't stay there. It's not about being spiritually bypassing and putting on those rose tinted spectacles. It's about, I can touch that pain, and I can touch that grief, and I can touch that reality. And yet I can choose something different because I know what love is. Love with a big L.
Yeah, totally. And what the power of that love can do, to just be able to transmit that and help be part of a movement that can really, in many ways in the 60s, they really did, with the whole hippie movement and everything, they really did know, what, and that was triggered by psychedelics, and here we are again in this second big, or as far as I'm aware, the second massive wave towards psychedelics and healing. Is because they really started something, and it's we're really waking up to that again, I think.
And it's dangerous, as in it's dangerous to governments and systems that don't support free thinking, that want us tethered to the television and Netflix and materialism and Amazon, and having to, to keep the economy alive that way. And whilst they're lining their pockets, as lovely as it is, even on Instagram, if you're a content creator, actually you're working for Instagram. You don't realize it, right? You're creating content. You think it's for you, but it's for the big machine. Not to bring any doom and gloom in here, but it is the reality. And yet, if you ask people when they're at their most happiest, often they'll talk about those little moments where they're not. It was never going to be, because I watched some funny cat video on Instagram. It'll be, I was watching a sunset with my wife on the beach, or I was watching my kid playing in the pool with the dog, little moments that have nothing to do with what you're wearing or what you have, what your possessions are, but just captured in that open-heartedness.
Totally.
So Donna, if someone wants to be part of your world, obviously you mentioned Substacks, that's your writing, so people can find you, can sign up to that. What else is happening? What offers have you got for people who might want to work with you on a retreat level or in workshops? What's coming up?
Well, actually, at the moment, not a lot, because I'm fully booked so I do a 6-month program called Wakey Wakey, and I'm fully booked for that. And that's really people that are ready to awaken. And then I have a free program called the Elderwood, which I'm doing, which is working with people that don't have the finances to access my other offerings. And that's fully booked. And then that's a 6-session over some months. And then I have a retreat coming, but not until January. I'm doing a retreat, an awakening retreat. So the good thing about, if people are interested in working with me and my friend and colleague Gabby Kruger, who was the co-founder of the Bridge Retreat, is that we're doing this retreat in January, but we're really looking, if people want to commit, and commitment, by the way, is part of the elder piece and part of the kind of wisdom piece, is to actually, because we've got so much choice. Maybe I'll do a retreat, maybe I won't, maybe I'll, not everybody, of course, but some of us. And so we're offering this retreat in January in West Sussex, near where I live. And it's really for people who are ready to awaken. But we're doing an offer at the moment, which is £500 discount for people who are ready and willing to commit, for an early bird, basically. Because what people don't realise, I know you understand this, Naz, as someone that runs retreats, is that you have to pay for the venue 6 months in advance often. And so we need the bookings now to be able to pay for the venue, to know that it's going to go ahead. So, yeah, we're offering £500 off the full fee. To join us. That's in January, the 14th to 19th, a great way to kickstart the new year. But in terms of other groups and one-to-ones, I do intensives, one-to-one intensives, where people can book me to work with me for the whole day, and they are kind of deep dives with rituals and everything. But other than that, I'm not offering any groups at the moment, because I'm writing, and I'll be spending the summer on a kind of writing project.
Amazing. I love the idea of your retreat in West Sussex. How do people know if they're ready? Let's speak to some people who listening to what we've been saying, and they go, "Oh, am I ready to wake up? Am I already awakened? Do I need this? How do we know that we're ready?"
I think it's a gut thing, and I think that women's intuition, usually, especially the women listeners, it's on a gut level. Sometimes people hear, like I have, like when I found my elder, I heard her speaking on a podcast. She is in America, and I thought, she has to be my elder. I need that woman to guide me, and at that point in my life, and I just reached out, and she went, yep, and I think it's the same. Like sometimes people hear me talking, and they'll just go, I need to work with you. And so trust that if you are being called to, or resonating with what I'm saying, that maybe, you want to look at what's on offer on the website, deepeningintolife.com, and then trust your gut.
Yes, do it. Dive in. Wakey. Yeah. I love the name of your retreat as well, the Wakey Wakey one. Wakey Wakey. Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's time. Yeah. Lots of humour. I love your Donna. I love your sense of humour and the way that you don't mince your words, and yet it feels deep and things land in such a way that they're not woo, but they're landing deeply with me. So thank you for your openness and honesty today.
Yes.
I'd love to ask you one last question, which is we ask all of our guests, which is if you were made Madam President for one day and you got to implement a change or pass a law that was going to stick, what would that be?
It would be, I thought about this. So it would be that all world leaders and all those working in politicians, etc., significant leaders in our countries across the world would be compulsory for them to do psychedelics. And
that's mine. That is absolutely mine. I think it would change the world. Absolutely.
So that, and you could call it greedy, I call it abundant. So there's that piece, therapeutic, psychedelic, ongoing experiences to clear their trauma and defrost their hearts. This would be the beginning of the end of war in our world and the destruction of our planet. And then alongside that, because I'm a Madam President, so I can give myself permission to
do what the fuck you want.
That would be absolutely compulsory, and the law could never be changed. And since I'm dreaming, women would be in leadership roles, and be and mothers in particularly would be worshipped as the new deities, because women and mothers in particular are so undervalued and so unseen and so. Yeah, I mean, women just are incredible, and they and mothers and those people that are caring for their parents and the person next door and someone, it's all about the women. And we need, as part of the feminine movement, we need to empower women and also to awaken women and let them lead us and guide us through the heart to save this beautiful, precious world.
Fuck yes. I remember you gave me this, which was a little earth mother made from Glastonbury clay. And I think you are an amazing, incredible, powerful woman. And I'm so grateful to have met you, to have crossed paths with you, to hear you speak, to get to share you with the people who may not yet know of you. I'm so excited for the feedback on this podcast. But I just wanted to say a big, big thank you to you for the work that you do for yourself, that is literally pollinating love wherever you go. So thank you, Donna. I've really, really enjoyed our conversation today.
Thank you, Naz. Me too. Thank you.